This is the Gaggia Classic Pro. Now, there's been a lot of interest in the Gaggia Classic Pro over the last few years, thanks to Mr. Sears and Mr. Hoffman, respectively. In this video, I'm just going to go over my experiences with this machine over the last few months and answer a few frequently asked questions. So, the main one, is the Gaggia Classic Pro worth it? If you're looking for a decent sort of prosumer level espresso machine, one that's well made, it brews delicious espresso, and it's got an amazing community behind it, look no further than the Gaggia. It's so good. But if you want a little more information before deciding whether to pull the trigger or not, this is the video for you. So one of the first questions that many people ask is, where is this machine made? Well, it's made in the home of espresso, Milan, Italy. Does the Gaggia Classic Pro make espresso? Yes, that's its primary function. Can the Gaggia Classic Pro make a cappuccino or a latte? Yep, steam one for that. How do you use the Gaggia Classic Pro? Well, I've made a short video for you to check out. What kind of coffee can I use in the Gaggia Classic? Well, most people recommend that you grind your own beans, and you make sure that the grind is fine enough to be considered an espresso grind. Now, you can of course use sort of pre-ground espresso as well. You don't always get the best results from it. However, I've found that by using local roasteries, they can tend to grind their beans for you to a much finer degree than you may get in the supermarket, for example. So if you're not ready to pull the trigger on a grinder just yet, that's probably a really good place to look. See if there are any local roasteries around you, see what they offer, and see if they actually pre-grind for you. That can be a really great way to get into decent espresso. What does the Gaggia Classic come with? Well, it comes with the machine itself. You've got a steam wand, you've got yourself the little portafilters here which do double shots. You've got this drip tray thing. You get 3 different baskets depending on what kind of espresso you're planning on brewing. Most of them are pressurized, so it's worth upgrading that, but I'll talk to you about that in the next section. This water tank at the back here, you can kind of see that it's got a level gauge on there as well, so you can fill it up to the max line. You can either sort of remove the drip tray and fill it up from the tank directly, or you can just take the lid off the top here and fill it straight into the tank from there. A little thing that isn't amazingly obvious is at the top here, this is made of stainless steel, and it heats up really nicely and allows you to warm your cups up while you're waiting for the machine to heat up. So you're not sort of pouring the espresso into a nice cold cup. Now, the other thing that I really like about this machine is the kind of clicky buttons. I mean, that's really tactile, that's cool. It's better than just having those kind of really nasty push buttons that sort of squidge as they go in. It's just nice. Yes. Really, really nice. The steam wand as well, that's all made of metal, which is fantastic. It's not burn proof, so as soon as you've actually finished frothing your milk, you need to wipe it straight off just to make sure the milk doesn't burn onto it. But you can control the pressure of the steam by using this little button on the side here. And from my experience, it actually froths up really, really quickly. It goes to temperature really, really quickly and does an excellent job with cappuccinos and lattes and things like that. Though I'm still with them. Now, another thing that you may have noticed at the back here, this is a sort of a pressure wand, I guess. So when you finish brewing, a lot of the excess water that typically stays on the puck due to pressure and things comes out through this straight into your drip tray. And that sort of makes sure that there's not going to be any sogginess on the puck. It's just a bit drier when you go to bang it out. Nice feature. Not many coffee machines have it, especially at this entry level. This one does. Excellent stuff. The next thing worth noting is that this machine is mainly constructed of metal, very little plastic here, which is really good, and it looks really sort of fresh and clean and nice in the kitchen. It's something that doesn't stand out as kind of an ugly appliance. It's a good looking appliance, it really is. Including the nice sort of Art Deco font Gaggia text at the front there. Good stuff. So, some of the negatives. Okay, well, we can't talk about the pros without talking about the negatives. So let's quickly get into that. One of the main things that I found, which is a bit of a pain, is the size of the drip tray. Now, it holds a lot of liquid, that's great, but the one thing you can't do, and the one thing you tend to want to do when you're trying to actually get used to brewing espresso and really dialing in for that flavour, is be able to put a scale underneath it as well as the cup. Let me show you. So, you've got your scale, you've got your cup. The scale goes there, cup does not. You end up sort of having to do this weird juggle where you're kind of getting the cup underneath first, then putting the scale in, but to be honest, all you can really do is sort of measure it by weight. You can't really tell how much liquid's going into the cup or how high it is. You're sort of doing this kind of contortion to try and see over the top of the cup, which you can't really do. That's a slight problem. Not a deal breaker by any means, just something to pay attention to. The next thing that it comes with is this little sort of plastic tampery thing that doesn't even fit the basket, and it's a real pain. So chuck that straight in the bin, get yourself something decent, get something like that. Proper tamper, nice weighted tamper that actually fills the basket properly. The next thing to note is about the pressure. So this machine actually ships with a 15 bar pressure. That, in the traditional sense of espresso, is a little high. You're generally looking for about 9 bar to get sort of traditional, really flavorful espresso. So to reduce the pressure from 15 bar to 9 bar, you basically just need to buy this little spring kit. It's about £20-ish, something like that. And it's really, really easy to do yourself. You can just take off the lid, unscrew a couple of things, swap over the springs. It's really not difficult at all. There's a ton of tutorials on YouTube on how to do that. The next thing is that there's no temperature or pressure dial. That's totally normal for machines under £1,000, to be honest. There's very few machines that actually offer that, and it's really not a deal breaker in this case. The next thing's kind of a weird one. It's difficult to see the water level in the actual tank. It's meant to be translucent. It's kind of translucent. It doesn't work that well. I tend to sort of shine a little phone light inside there to see what the level's at. It's minor gripe. The baskets that it ships with, they're okay. They're not great. To be honest, that's again another really easy and cheap upgrade that you can do really early on. I'd recommend a VST basket. They're pretty cheap. They're about £24 for, I think, a 1 gram, 20 gram, 18 gram, different grammage. You could buy so many different variants, and the engineering standards are much, much higher. And I found the coffee goes through much quicker than the pressurized baskets that the Gaggia ships with. So yeah, good deal there. I'd upgrade that. Last thing to consider is that this is a 1 boiler machine. So you can't froth milk while brewing espresso at the same time. You need to do them individually. Again, this isn't the kind of feature that you would see on a machine that's sub £1,000. So what it does very well. A few improvements could be made, but again, you'd be spending a lot more money on a much better machine at that point. What should you consider picking up additionally outside of the machine if and when you buy one? So, as I mentioned previously, a new VST basket is a must. I've honestly found that that's made a massive difference to my brewing. The second would be a new tamper. Again, as I mentioned before, the plastic one it comes with is this is not. On that same sort of note, I suppose, it's really good to get a leveler, one of these things. What that allows you to do is to spread the coffee around the basket evenly. So there's less of a chance of you sort of tamping unevenly. The coffee's really been spread around nice and evenly across the basket. Another thing is a good set of scales, one of these bad boys. You want scales that go in between grams as well. So you don't want 4 grams, just things that go in between so you can really get a precise measurement. Next thing you'll want is a little digital timer, which will allow you to measure your extraction time. Something like that. You can get it for about £10 on Amazon, super cheap. A few little cleaning rags as well. This is the one that I just grabbed from the top of my coffee machine. A bang out bin as well, just to get rid of the puck instead of kind of flushing it straight down the drain. That can apparently clog your drain, although the advice is kind of mixed on that, to be fair. But what that means is that you're not sort of dripping the basket all over the kitchen floor. You can just bang your puck straight out, and then once the bin's filled up, chuck it straight in the big bin. Easy peasy. The next thing you could consider is a grinder of some kind. Again, the general advice is that you spend just as much on the grinder as you do on the machine itself. And with this machine coming in at £420, $450, you know, that's not an easy purchase to make right away. So as I kind of mentioned previously, look for some local roasteries. See if they offer pre-ground espresso for you, just so you can get the hang of the machine before you move on to having to, you know, grind for espresso specifically, which is a challenge in itself. Some weird things that I learned when I first got this machine. The first thing that's worth noting is that it takes the machine really about 5-10 minutes to warm up properly. You can kind of cheat it a bit if you really need a quick espresso. That you can do by literally switching it on. It's not plugged in, but switching it on, whacking the steam button on and waiting for 20 seconds. That sort of kickstarts the boiler to reach a temperature much, much quicker. But it's usually better just to let the machine heat up itself, just to make sure that you can then just stick a cup on top, just wait 10 minutes, it's not really a problem. Next thing, this is just general advice that I read online as well, is that with the portafilter, just whack it straight into the gasket as the machine is heating up. So when you put your coffee into the basket, it's not going from like 3 different temperatures. So you don't want to have it from the bag temperature to a cold portafilter temperature to then hot water. It keeps it just a little more consistent, and apparently it reduces microfractures within the puck. Don't know how true that is, but give it a go. Let me know if you find out. The final thing is that the used market for the Gaggias is actually really good. So because this machine is so upgradable and because it's so popular, there's a ton of them online. And as long as you don't mind getting a bit handy and maybe doing a few repairs yourself on some of the older machines, that's a really good option to get a cheap Gaggia. As always, if you have any sort of further questions or you want to ask me about anything else to do with my experience with this machine, drop me a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. But if you like this video, give me a like. If you want to see more from me, hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate that. It helps the channel grow as well. But until next time, guys, ta-ra.